Ilara stood in the dim light of her small apartment, staring at the faded photograph of her Aunt Serafina. It had been 2 years since the events that shattered their family, but the memories still haunted her like ghosts in the night. She had promised herself she would document it all, turn the pain into a story that could warn others. As Lila's cousin, she had watched from the shadows, piecing together the fragments of a life torn apart by betrayal. This was her account, a continuation of the nightmare that began when Lila hit rock bottom. It started on a cold, rainy evening in the city's back alleys. Lila Voss, once the epitome of glamour and poise, was now a shadow of her former self. Divorced from Damian Blackwood, the ruthless billionaire who had stripped her of everything, she rummaged through a dumpster behind a rundown cafe. Her clothes were ragged, her hair matted from days without shelter. Hunger gnawed at her insides, but worse was the heartbreak that echoed in her chest. Damian's parting words rang in her ears. "Nobody wants a broken woman like you." Lila had married him against her mother's warnings. Serafina had seen through Damian's charm, calling him a manipulator who would betray her. Blinded by love, Lila had defied her, cutting ties with her family and plunging into a marriage that became a prison. Damian isolated her, controlled her finances, and eroded her spirit until the divorce left her homeless and penniless. Now she survived on scraps, and her world was reduced to survival. That night, as Lila clutched a half-eaten sandwich, a figure approached. An elegant and composed woman in a tailored black coat stopped beside her. "Excuse me, are you Lila Voss?" The woman's voice was soft, almost kind, cutting through the rain like a lifeline. Lila looked up, startled. Her eyes, once bright with ambition, were now dulled by despair. She nodded slowly, wary of strangers. The woman smiled faintly. "My name is Victoria Hale. I was your mother's attorney for the last 15 years. Serafina Voss passed away 8 days ago. She instructed me to find you and deliver her message in person." The words hit Lila like a thunderbolt. Her mother, dead? Tears welled up as memories flooded back. Serafina's pleas, the ultimatum not to marry Damian, the promise that if she did, she would inherit nothing. Lila had chosen love, or what she thought was love, and paid dearly. The sandwich slipped from her fingers as she gripped the dumpster's edge, her legs buckling. She collapsed onto the wet pavement, sobs racking her body. Victoria knelt beside her, unmindful of the grime. She waited patiently until Lila could breathe again. "Your mother understood everything," Victoria said quietly. "She knew how Damian twisted your reality, isolated you from everyone who cared. That's why she planned this. She left you her entire estate, the mansion on Laurel Heights, the vintage Ferrari, her investments, and her personal fortune, valued conservatively at $500 million. Lila stared in disbelief. The number was absurd. Sitting in filth, wearing clothes unchanged for weeks, and now this? But Serafina had said I would get nothing if I married him. Victoria nodded. She hoped the fear would wake you when love could not. When you proceeded anyway, she did not stop loving you. She began preparing for your return. Standing, Victoria offered her hand. "There are conditions, though, significant ones. We should discuss them somewhere warm. My car is nearby." Inside the heated vehicle, Lila felt a warmth she had forgotten. Victoria handed her a water bottle and an envelope embossed with Serafina's initials. "The conditions are non-negotiable. First, you must revive Voss Couture. The company has been struggling since you left. You have 1 year to restore it to profitability and relevance." Lila's hands trembled as she opened the envelope, revealing photos of the mansion, studios, and gardens where she had grown up. Memories surfaced. Afternoons sketching with her mother, learning to see beauty in every detail. "The second condition is more intricate," Victoria continued. "The Blackwood family has been demolishing historic districts for their luxury towers. Serafina fought to preserve the neighborhood around her estate in her final years. You must finish that battle." Hearing Damian's name ignited rage in Lila. He had started the acquisitions right after their divorce, targeting what her mother cherished as revenge. All those years defending him, believing his lies that Serafina was controlling. Now the truth burned clear. "If I succeed, is the estate mine?" Victoria confirmed. If you fail, it goes to charity. Your mother wanted you to have purpose, to remember who you were before he erased that person. On the back of a photo, Serafina had written, "For my daughter, who forgot she was a warrior, come home." "When can I start?" Lila asked, her voice steady for the first time. Victoria smiled. "Right now. The staff has kept the mansion ready, believing in your return." The drive felt surreal, neighborhoods shifting from decay to prosperity. Each street evoked walks with Serafina, talks of legacy and dreams. The mansion loomed like a beacon, windows glowing warmly. As they pulled up, the door opened. Mira embraced Lila fiercely. "Child, I thought we lost you forever. Welcome home." Thorne stood composed, but tears glistened. "Miss Voss, your mother prepared for this. Everything is ready." Then Alara stepped forward, her expression guarded. "We met as kids, before you vanished. I have been holding Voss Couture together. We meet tomorrow to face the dire reality." She turned away abruptly. Mira whispered. She carried the weight alone, grieving Serafina. "Give her time." Victoria handed Lila a key. "The house is yours. I will return tomorrow for legal details. Tonight, rest. Your mother left letters hidden here. Find them when ready." Alone in the foyer, Lila marveled at the unchanged elegance. Marble floors, chandeliers, paintings by Serafina's friends. Mira guided her to her old room, pristine, with fresh clothes and a note. "My darling, if you read this, I am gone, but you are home. No guilt, just live as the woman I knew beneath his lies. These conditions are your map back. Love always, mother." Lila wept softly, understanding Serafina's love had let her fall to teach her to rise. Showering away the grime, she saw determination in the mirror. Wandering the mansion, each room stirred memories, music salons, libraries, dining halls filled with laughter. In Serafina's study, a wall of photos, including a recent one of Lila at a shelter, chronicled her life, unbowed. Beneath it, a document in Serafina's voice. "True love waits at the exit with bandages. I waited, prepared everything for your rise. Come back to yourself." Lila held it close. Her phone buzzed, a message from Damien. "Heard about your windfall. Remember, our marriage entitles me to half. My lawyer contacts will be soon." Rage surged, but she was no longer defenseless. Calling Victoria, Lila said, "Tell me about Mother's legal team." Damien declared war. "This time, I fight." Ilara, reflecting now, knew this was the spark. But the darkness Damien cast was far from over. It would test them all, revealing secrets Ilara had buried deep. The inheritance was not just wealth but a curse wrapped in salvation, pulling them into a storm they could not yet see. Lila sat in Victoria's car, the envelope heavy in her lap. The rain pattered against the windows, blurring the city lights into a haze. She traced her mother's initials on the paper, feeling a mix of awe and dread. $500 million. It sounded like a fairy tale, but Serafina had always been practical, even in death. Lila knew there would be strings attached, conditions designed to force her hand. Victoria glanced at her as she drove. Your mother was adamant about the terms. She wanted more than to give you wealth. She wanted to give you back your life. Lila nodded, her mind racing. What are they exactly? Victoria explained calmly. First, Voss Couture. The company your mother built from nothing is on the brink of collapse. Suppliers have fled, clients have vanished, and debts are mounting. You have 1 year to turn it around and make it profitable and innovative again. Fail, and the estate reverts to charity. Lila's heart sank. She had once been Serafina's right hand in the design studio, sketching collections that blended elegance with edge. But Damien had convinced her to step away, claiming it interfered with their life together. In truth, he had seen the company as a threat, a link to her independence. And the second condition? Victoria's voice tightened. The Blackwood family's development project. They are bulldozing historic neighborhoods for soulless towers. Your mother spent her last years rallying the community against it, especially the district around the mansion. You must stop them and preserve the heritage. Rage flickered in Lila's chest. Damien had accelerated the project right after the divorce, as if punishing Serafina for trying to warn her. It was strategic cruelty, attacking the roots of her family while leaving her destitute. If I succeed, Victoria said. "The estate is yours entirely." Serafina believed you needed purpose to heal, not just money. She knew Damien had stripped away your sense of self. This is her way of helping you reclaim it. They arrived at the mansion under a clearing sky. The grand estate stood timeless, its stone facade illuminated by soft lights. Leela stepped out, the gravel crunching under her feet. The air smelled of jasmine from the gardens Serafina had tended herself. As the door opened, familiar faces emerged. Mira, the housekeeper who had been with the family since Leela's birth, rushed forward. Her embrace was warm and fierce. "Oh child, we prayed for this day. Welcome home, truly." The estate manager Thorne stood behind her, his posture straight but eyes misty. "Miss Voss, your mother never doubted your return. The household is prepared." Then Ilara, her cousin, appeared with arms crossed and a calm expression. "We met as children, before you chose him over everything. I have been managing what remains of Voss Couture. Tomorrow we will discuss the mess. It is worse than you imagine." She retreated inside without another word. Mira squeezed Leela's arm. "Do not mind her sharpness. Ilara sacrificed a lot to keep the company afloat while grieving Serafina. She will warm up." Victoria handed Leela an ornate key. "This is yours now. I will return in the morning for the paperwork. For tonight, rest. Your mother scattered letters throughout the house. Seek them when you feel strong enough." Alone in the grand foyer, Lila absorbed the familiarity. The marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, walls lined with art from Serafina's circle of creators. Nothing had changed, as if time had paused in hope of her return. Mira insisted on guiding her upstairs to her old bedroom. It was untouched, books on the nightstand, sketches pinned to the walls. On the bed lay fresh clothes and a note in Serafina's elegant script. "My darling girl, if you are reading this, I am gone, but you are here. That is all I ever wanted. Waste no time on regret. Live as the woman I knew you to be, free from his shadows. These conditions are not chains. They are your path forward. I love you eternally, Mother." Tears came quietly this time, not the raw sobs of the alley, but a release of understanding. Serafina had loved her enough to enforce tough love. Knowing pain was the only teacher to break Damien's hold. Lila showered, the hot water washing away layers of grime and shame. The towels were soft, and the clothes fit perfectly. She saw a gaunt face in the mirror, but her eyes held a spark of resolve. Sleep evaded her, so she wandered the halls. The music room evoked charity concerts Serafina hosted. The library, rainy days lost in books. The dining room, family gatherings filled with joy. In her mother's study, the photo wall told her life story. Birthdays, graduations, her first fashion show. A recent image showed Lila outside a shelter, posture defiant despite the hollow cheeks. Serafina had known and had watched from afar. Beneath it lay a document echoing her mother's voice. "My daughter thought I abandoned her with that ultimatum. But love sometimes means refusing to enable destruction. I stood ready with healing, waiting for you to emerge from the fire. I prepared tools for rebirth because I saw your true strength beneath his deceptions. Return to who you are." Lila clutched the paper, a weight lifting. Her phone, charged for the first time in weeks, buzzed. Damien's number. "News of your fortune travels fast. Our shared years entitle me to compensation. Expect my lawyer soon. Let us handle this civilly." Fury boiled, but she was different now. Serafina's daughter is armed with Serafina's wisdom in Serafina's home. She called Victoria, ignoring the late hour. "I need details on the legal team Mother assembled. Damien has declared war, but this time, I am not alone." As Ilara, I remember that call vividly. I had been in the shadows, resenting Lila for abandoning us, for letting Damien's poison seep into our family. My life had stalled. Once poised to lead Voss Couture, I lost opportunities when Damien spread rumors to isolate Lila further, dragging me down collaterally. Serafina had trusted me to hold the fort, but the bitterness festered. The next morning, Lila met me in the studio. Sunlight streamed through windows overlooking the gardens. Spreadsheets and designs covered the table, painting a grim picture. Debts over $1 million, key designers gone, suppliers demanding payment. I said flatly that we are surviving on loyalty from a few old clients. Damien's sabotage was thorough. He bribed vendors and spread lies about quality. It started a year after your marriage. Lila's face hardened. I did not know. Of course not. You were too busy defending him. My words were sharp, born of years holding the pieces together while Serafina fought illness alone. But as we pored over the numbers, something shifted. Lila sketched ideas, bold lines that echoed Serafina's style but with her own fire. We can rebuild, she said. Partner with ethical investors, relaunch with a story of resilience. Victoria arrived with contracts. The conditions are binding but flexible in execution. You have access to initial funds for operations. As we signed, a delivery arrived. A shredded veil, Serafina's wedding heirloom, with a note from Damien. You destroyed what mattered. Now I will dismantle your illusions. Lila stared at the ruins. This is his opening move. But we fight smarter. Elara, will you help? I hesitated, then nodded. For Serafina, yes. Little did we know, the curse of the inheritance was awakening deeper secrets. Damien's family hid scandals that would unravel everything, and my own buried pain would surface, forcing alliances we never imagined. The storm was brewing, and the mansion, once a sanctuary, felt like a battlefield. The morning after Lila's return, the mansion buzzed tensely. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows of the breakfast room, casting long shadows across the oak table where we gathered. Lila looked transformed, her hair washed and pulled back, and she wore one of Serafina's elegant yet straightforward blouses. But her eyes held a haunted determination, as if the night's revelations had ignited something fierce within her. Victoria arrived early, spreading legal documents like battle plans. We have a problem, Victoria said without preamble. Damien Blackwood filed suit last night. He claims 50% of the estate, arguing that his support during your marriage entitles him to compensation. He portrays himself as the devoted husband abandoned by a wayward wife who severed family ties. Lila's jaw tightened. Support? He controlled every penny, isolated me from work, from friends, from everything. It was not support, it was a cage. I watched her closely. As Elara, I had seen the emails Damien sent under Lila's name, forging her words to cut off Serafina. I had kept copies hidden away as evidence of his manipulation, but revealing them now meant dredging up my own resentment. Serafina had tasked me with protecting the company, but Damien's whispers had once convinced me Lila was the villain, choosing luxury over legacy. It took years to see the truth. Victoria outlined the strategy. We counter with proof of coercive control, isolation, financial dependence, emotional manipulation. But his lawyer is sharp, Julian Sterling, known for turning predators into victims in court. The first hearing is tomorrow. We need to prepare. Lila nodded. Then let us start. Show me everything. That afternoon we dove into the files. Vos Couture's ledgers revealed the sabotage. Cancelled orders, smeared reputations, all tracing back to Blackwood Enterprises. Elara, you have been holding this together, Lila said, her voice softening. Thank you. I met her gaze. It was for Serafina. She believed you would return. But yes, we fight now, together. Night fell and sleep eluded Lila. In the quiet hours, nightmares gripped her. She dreamed of Damien's office, his hands on her bank statements, his voice smooth as silk. This is for us, love. You do not need them anymore. She woke, sweating, heart pounding, the room spinning. PTSD, Dr. Kane would later call it. But in that moment, it was raw terror. She paced the halls, finding solace in Serafina's study, rereading the letters. One note said strength comes from facing the fire, not fleeing it. Lila whispered to the empty room. I am facing it, Mother. The courthouse loomed the next day, a gray monolith under overcast skies. Reporters swarmed the steps, shouting questions about the homeless heiress and the billionaire ex. Lila walked tall, flanked by Victoria and me. Inside, the courtroom was stark, wood-paneled walls echoing with murmurs. Damien sat across the aisle, impeccably suited, his face a mask of calm regret. Beside him, Simone, his new partner, avoided Lila's eyes. Julian Sterling rose first, his voice polished and persuasive. "Your Honor, this is a matter of equity. My client, Damian Blackwood, devoted years to his marriage, providing shelter, stability, and emotional support when Ms. Voss estranged herself from her family. He stood by her through the isolation she chose. Now, she inherits a fortune she did nothing to earn, while he, who sacrificed, receives nothing. We seek recognition of marital partnership. Fairness demands it." Lila felt the words twist like Nile. Julian made Damian sound noble. She was ungrateful. Doubt crept in, even knowing the lies. Victoria stood, her presence commanding. "Your Honor, Mr. Sterling spins a tale. Let me present facts. Ms. Voss did not choose estrangement. She was systematically isolated by a spouse who viewed her mother's influence as a threat. Serafina Voss refused to fund an abusive dynamic, an act of love, not abandonment. Victoria placed documents before the judge. This letter from the deceased, post-divorce, outlines the inheritance conditions explicitly. Serafina structured it to rebuild her daughter's independence. As for Mr. Blackwood's support, we will show it was control, blocked employment, monitored finances, weaponized dependence. The judge reviewed the papers thoughtfully. "Mr. Sterling, you request depositions?" "Yes, Your Honor. Household staff and associates can clarify the mother-daughter rift, relevant to the inheritance's validity." Victoria objected sharply. "The deceased's will is her prerogative. Conditions are legal." The judge ruled that limited depositions were allowed and focused on the marriage. No inquisition into Serafina's choices. As the hearing ended, Julian passed Lila's table, his stride slowing. Their eyes met briefly, something unreadable flickering in his. Doubt, perhaps? Then he was gone. Outside, Damian addressed the media. "I cared deeply for my ex-wife. This is about principle, acknowledging sacrifices in hardship." Lila wanted to shout the truth, his rages, his controls, his deliberate dismantling of her self-worth. But Victoria restrained her. Outbursts play into his narrative of instability. Back at the mansion, Thorne prepared tea in the conservatory. Mira hovered, her concern palpable, until Victoria suggested privacy. "The depositions will be grueling," she warned. "Julian excels at twisting loyalty into suspicion. Mira, Thorne, and Alara will all face scrutiny on Serafina's decisions and your absence." Lila stared into her cup. "He will paint me as the abandoner, crawling back for money." "Yes," Victoria replied, "but we prepare." That night, unable to rest, Lila wandered to Serafina's bedroom. The room was preserved, perfume on the vanity, book open on the nightstand. On the desk, letters addressed to Lila were never sent. She read them, chronicling Serafina's illness, the neighborhood battles, Voss Couture's decline, and unwavering love. "I saw you today," one said, "outside the shelter. I wanted to bring you home, but you are not ready. He must shatter the illusion first. I wait, as always." The date was weeks before Serafina's death. She had been dying, yet watching, patient. Lila cried, the weight of lost time crushing. A noise at the door, me, Ilera, could not sleep either. "May I?" Lila nodded. "It is your aunt's room too." I entered hesitantly. "That is not true. She was your mother. I was just the cousin holding the fort." "I am sorry," Lila said, "for leaving, for choosing him." "Do not apologize yet." My voice edged. "You do not earn forgiveness instantly. Serafina fought alone while you were gone. But she planned for you. The conditions, we discussed them. She wanted you to return fully, not just in body. I do not know who I am anymore. Then we discover it together. Tomorrow, I will show you Voss Couture's ruins. It will sting, but the truth is necessary." After I left, Lila sketched for the first time in years, lines flowing into a dress like armor. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Against instinct, she read, "This need not be adversarial. We shared meaningful years. I seek only fairness. Call off your lawyer. Let us talk like adults. No need for ugliness. Julian Sterling." Contacting her directly violated ethics. She should report it. Instead, she pondered, Phrasing hinted at personal doubt. Deleting it, she sensed a crack in Damien's armor. As Ilera, I later learned of that message. It was the first sign Julian might switch sides, but greater threats loomed. Damien's family secrets, my hidden pain from his manipulations. They would erupt soon. The war had begun, and the first battle was depositions that would expose us all. The deposition room was a sterile box, with fluorescent lights and cold metal chairs. Lila sat at the head of the table, flanked by Victoria and me, Ilera, her cousin and reluctant ally. Across from us, Julian Sterling adjusted his tie, his sharp eyes scanning notes. The court stenographer typed silently, capturing every word. This was the first of 3 depositions, where Damien's team would probe the household staff, Mira, Thorne, and me, for cracks in Lila's story. They wanted to paint her as a reckless daughter who abandoned Serafina, unfit to inherit. But we had evidence of our own, and I carried a weight I had not yet shared. Mira went first, her hands clasped tightly. Julian leaned forward. Ms. Mira, you served Serafina Voss for 30 years. Describe her relationship with her daughter post-marriage to Damien Blackwood. Mira's voice was steady but pained. It broke her heart. Lila stopped calling, stopped visiting. Serafina knew it was not her choice. Damien controlled her life, her accounts, her phone. She sent letters that Lila never saw. Julie Vane raised an eyebrow. So Serafina assumed manipulation without proof. Did she ever consider that Lila chose to distance herself? Mira bristled. She hired a private investigator. He confirmed Damien intercepted messages, even forged replies to make it seem Lila rejected her. Victoria slid a file across the table, copies of the investigator's reports, dated 3 years ago. Julian skimmed them, his expression unreadable. Next was Thorne, the estate manager, his face etched with grief. Mr. Thorne, Julian began, you managed Serafina's properties, including Voss Couture's offices. Why did she not intervene when Lila became homeless? Thorne straightened. She wanted to, every day. But she believed forcing Lila back would trap her in guilt. Serafina prepared the inheritance to give Lila purpose, not just money. She paid my daughter's medical bills when Damien refused, knowing Lila could not access funds. Your daughter, Julian pressed. Thorne's voice cracked. She died 5 years ago, a victim of abuse like Lila endured. I stayed because Serafina fought for women like her, like Lila. The room fell silent. Julian shifted, his confidence faltering. Victoria seized the moment, presenting emails Damien sent to suppliers demanding they cut ties with Voss Couture or face Blackwood Enterprises' wrath. Then it was my turn. As Ilara, I had dreaded this. Ms. Ilara, Julian said, you ran Voss Couture after Lila left. Why did you not reach out to her during her hardship? I swallowed hard. I tried once, early in her marriage. Damien answered her phone, and she said she wanted no contact. I believed him, my mistake. Later, I found emails he sent from her account, rejecting Serafina and me. I kept them, proof of his lies. Victoria handed over my file, dozens of forged emails, timestamps matching Damien's access to Lila's devices. Julian's jaw tightened. And your personal relationship with Lila? Strained, I admitted. I resented her for choosing him, for leaving me to clean up the company's ruin. But Serafina taught me it was not her fault. Damien targeted us all. I hesitated, then revealed my secret. He targeted me too. Before their marriage, Damien approached me charmingly and offered partnerships. I was young and ambitious. He used me to learn about Voss Couture, then spread rumors that I mismanaged funds. It cost me my reputation and my chance to lead. Serafina forgave me, but I carried the shame. Lila's eyes widened, meeting mine. You never told me. I looked away. I was angry, but I am here now. Julian ended the session abruptly, citing a need to review evidence. As we left, Lila touched my arm. I am sorry, Ilera. I did not know. I nodded, unable to speak. The depositions had cracked open old wounds, but bound us closer. That night, Lila retreated to the studio. sketching designs inspired by Serafina's letters. She found a hidden drawer in her mother's desk, revealing sketches of never-made dresses. Each bore a note, "For Lila, my heart, to wear when you are free." The designs were more than art. They were a story. One dress mirrored the garden where Lila played as a child, its fabric flowing like petals. Another echoed the strength of Serafina's spirit, bold lines and defiant colors. Lila realized her mother had woven their memories into these creations, a silent promise of love through years of silence. She worked until dawn, her pencil reclaiming a part of herself Damien had buried. But the fight was far from over. Victoria called with news. Damien's team requested an emergency hearing to freeze the estate's assets, citing Lila's homelessness as evidence of mental instability. "They are using photos from the shelter," Victoria said. "Julian will argue you are unfit to manage such wealth." Lila's resolve hardened. "Let them try. I am not that woman anymore." To prepare, Lila joined a therapy session arranged by Victoria, a small group for survivors of abuse. Sitting among strangers, she shared fragments of her story: Damien's control, the isolation, the slow theft of her identity. The group listened, their own stories echoing hers. One woman, Clara, spoke of reclaiming her art after years of suppression. It sparked something in Lila. Vase Couture would be her redemption, a canvas to tell her truth. Back at the mansion, Mira and Thorne rallied the remaining staff, loyalists who had stayed despite unpaid wages. "We need investors," Lila said, spreading her sketches. "These designs are our story, survival, beauty from pain." I nodded, impressed despite myself. "I know ethical firms that admired Serafina. I will make calls." Thorne added, "The community trusts the Voss name. Use it for the neighborhood fight, too." As planned, a delivery arrived at the gate, an unmarked package. Inside was a photograph of Lila and Damien on their wedding day, her veil pristine. Across it, in red ink, "You broke us. Now I break you, Damien." Lila's hands shook, but she did not crumble. "He thinks he can scare me. He is wrong." Victoria examined the note. "We document this. It is harassment, admissible in court." Lila agreed, but unease lingered. Damien's moves escalated, and Julian's silence since the depositions felt ominous. As Alara, I sensed a shift in him during my testimony, a flicker of doubt about his client. But there was something he knew about Damien that he had not shared. That night, Lila's phone buzzed again. Another message from Julian. "I overstepped. But there is more to this case than you know. Meet me alone tomorrow. No lawyers." Lila stared at the screen. It was a risk, a breach of ethics that could trap her. Yet her instinct screamed, Julian was a key, not just an enemy. She replied, "Name the place." Unaware of the exchange, I felt the storm gathering as I watched her. The depositions had exposed Damien's lies, but they had also awakened secrets in our family, secrets that would soon explode, threatening everything we fought for. As I watched Lila navigate the treacherous waters of her inheritance, I couldn't help but feel a mix of resentment and reluctant admiration. The Deson from Aunt Serafina had thrust her back into the spotlight, but Damien Blackwood was not one to relinquish control easily. Amid this storm, unexpected allies emerged, shifting the balance in ways none of us could have anticipated. The day started with a knock at the door of the Voss estate. Our loyal housekeeper, Mira, opened it to reveal Isolde Beaumont, a woman whose presence carried the weight of old secrets. Isolde had been Serafina's closest friend for decades, a confidant who shared in the highs and lows of building Vase Couture from the ground up. She was elegant, with silver hair pinned neatly and eyes that missed nothing. She clutched a thick manila envelope, its edges worn from years of careful preservation. "Lila," I said, stepping forward to greet her. "This is Isolde Beaumont. She knew your mother better than anyone." Lila's eyes widened in recognition. "Isolde? Mother mentioned you in her letters. Please, come in." We settled in the drawing room, the same one where Serafina had once sketched her revolutionary designs. Isolde wasted no time, sliding the envelope across the table. "I've been holding on to this for Serafina. She knew Damien's family history all too well. The Blackwoods didn't build their empire on hard work alone. It was riddled with corruption. Bribes to city officials, manipulated real estate deals that displaced entire communities, and tax evasions masked as charitable donations. It's all here: documents, emails, even recordings from whistleblowers who were silenced years ago. Lila flipped through the pages, her face paling as she absorbed the details. Damien's father, Roderick Blackwood, had orchestrated schemes to acquire prime land for pennies, forcing out small businesses like ours. And Damien? He was his father's protege, involved in several underhanded acquisitions that padded their fortune while bankrupting competitors. This could change everything. Victoria Hale interjected, her lawyer's instincts kicking in. We can counter Damien's claims and expose the rot in his family's legacy. But Isolde's gift came with a warning. Be careful, Lila. Damien won't take this lying down. He's already moving against you. True to her words, that afternoon brought a bombshell. Damien's legal team, led by Julian Sterling, filed an emergency motion to freeze Lila's assets. The vicious petition painted Lila as unstable and unfit to manage the inheritance. They attached photographs of her during her homeless days, snapped covertly by private investigators. Lila huddled under a bridge in the rain, rummaging through dumpsters for scraps. The images were meant to humiliate, to argue that she was mentally incapacitated and that the estate should be placed under conservatorship, conveniently with Damien as overseer. I felt a surge of anger as I read the filing. How dare he use her suffering against her? The man who had driven her to that point now twisted it to his advantage. Victoria called an urgent meeting. This is a low blow, but predictable. Damien's claiming you need a psychological evaluation before accessing the funds. The judge has scheduled an emergency hearing for tomorrow. Lila nodded, her jaw set in determination. Then we'll fight it. But what about Julian? He sent that message hinting at doubts about Damien. Could we use that? Victoria's expression turned grave. If Julian disclosed privileged information, it could lead to an ethics investigation by the Bar Association. Disbarment, fines, and even criminal charges if it's seen as tampering. But we can't rely on him yet. It might be a trap. As we prepared for the hearing, I reflected on my tangled history with Damien. Years ago, when Lila first married him, he had approached me under the guise of family unity. Charming dinners, subtle flattery, he was fishing for insider details on Vos Couture's operations. I fell for it briefly, sharing minor insights that he later used to sabotage our suppliers. It cost me Serafina's trust and my shot at leading the company. Now, seeing Lila rally, I vowed to make amends. The courtroom was tense the next morning. Judge Harlan presided, a stern woman with a reputation for fairness. Damien sat smugly beside Julian, his eyes locked on Lila with predatory intensity. Julian argued passionately. Ms. Voss's recent homelessness indicates severe instability. Freezing the assets protects the estate from mismanagement. Victoria countered swiftly. Your Honor, these photos were taken during a period of abuse inflicted by Mr. Blackwood himself. We have affidavits from witnesses detailing his coercive control. Moreover, we present new evidence of the Blackwood family's corrupt practices directly impacting the Voss estate. She handed over Isolde's dossier. The judge skimmed it, her eyebrows rising. This warrants review. However, regarding the freeze, I'll order a psychological evaluation for Miss Voss. Until then, partial access to funds for living expenses only, no major disbursements. Damien didn't get the complete freeze he wanted. It was a partial victory, but the evaluation loomed like a shadow. As we left the courthouse, Lila turned to me. Ilara, thank you for being here. I know this isn't easy for you. I squeezed her hand. We're in this together now. At the estate, Lila prepared for the fashion show that could revive Vos Couture. We needed investors, and a successful event would prove her capability. Designers buzzed around the studio, fabrics swirling in a symphony of colors. Lila's vision was bold, a collection themed around resilience, each piece symbolizing a step from captivity to freedom. But as night fell, the threats escalated. Lila's phone buzzed with an anonymous message. Cancel the show or watch it burn. The sender's number traced back to a burner, but we knew Damien's handiwork. Victoria advised caution. We should increase security. And about that evaluation, Dr. Isadora Kane is neutral. She'll see through any facade. I watched Lila stare at the message, her resolve hardening. He won't stop me this time. The next few days blurred into a frenzy. Isolde returned with more support, connecting us to former Blackwood employees who were willing to testify. 1. A retired accountant detailed how Damien had funneled funds to bribe officials for his urban development project, the same one threatening the historic neighborhood. Meanwhile, whispers reached us about Julian's internal conflict. Victoria received an encrypted email from an unknown source, likely him, hinting at more evidence. But pursuing it risked exposing him prematurely. As the fashion show approached, Lila underwent the psychological evaluation. Dr. Kane's office was clinical, but her demeanor was empathetic. "Tell me about your marriage," she prompted. Lila recounted the isolation, the financial stranglehold, the nights of doubt. It was coercive control at its worst. He made me question my sanity. Dr. Kane nodded. "Classic signs of gaslighting. You're resilient, Ms. Voss. This report will reflect that." The evaluation came back positive, clearing the way for full asset access. But Damien appealed immediately, dragging it out. On the eve of the show, another ally emerged unexpectedly. Thorne, our butler, who had lost his daughter to a similar abusive relationship. He offered surveillance footage from the estate, showing Damien's past intrusions. With these pieces falling into place, the stage was set. But as Lila finalized the runway lineup, her phone rang again. A voice message from Damien. "You think you've won? This is just the beginning. I'll make sure your little parade ends in flames." The threat hung heavy, a cliffhanger promising chaos. Yet, with Isolde's evidence and our growing network of supporters, we pressed on, ready to turn the tide. The days leading up to the psychological evaluation were a whirlwind of preparation and anxiety. Lila had cleared the initial hurdles with Dr. Isadora Kane's report looming as the next critical step. I could see the toll it was taking on her, the way her hands trembled slightly when she sketched new designs for the upcoming fashion show. We all knew this assessment could make or break her access to the inheritance, and Damien was counting on it to paint her as unstable. Dr. Kane was a renowned psychologist specializing in trauma and abuse cases. Her office was in a quiet building downtown, with soft lighting and comfortable chairs that did little to ease the tension. Lila arrived early, dressed in one of Serafina's classic pieces, a subtle nod to her mother's legacy. Victoria accompanied her, but the session was private. I waited outside with Thorne, who paced silently, his face etched with worry. Inside, Dr. Kane began gently. "Tell me about your marriage to Damien Blackwood," she prompted. Lila took a deep breath. It started like a fairy tale, but it turned into a nightmare. He isolated me from everyone, friends and family. He controlled the money, the decisions, even what I wore. As Lila spoke, memories flooded back in vivid flashbacks. She described one particular evening early in their marriage. Damien had hosted a dinner party with influential business associates. Lila had laughed at a joke from an old college friend, a harmless interaction. But later that night, Damien cornered her in their bedroom. "You embarrassed me," he hissed. "From now on, no more contact with them. They are bad influences." The isolation escalated. He monitored her phone, deleted contacts, and fabricated reasons to keep her home. Birthdays passed without calls from loved ones. Holidays were spent in silence. Lila felt like a prisoner in her own life, doubting her sanity as Damien gaslighted her relentlessly. "You are overreacting," he would say. "I am protecting you." Dr. Kane nodded empathetically. "This sounds like classic coercive control. It's a form of psychological abuse where the perpetrator erodes the victim's autonomy. How did it affect you long term?" Lila wiped away a tear. "Nightmares, panic attacks. Even now, I second-guess myself. But I am fighting back." The session lasted 2 hours, delving into Lila's resilience and her plans for Voss Couture. Dr. Kane concluded that while Lila bore scars from the abuse, she was mentally sound and capable of managing her affairs. The report would reflect her strength, not her vulnerabilities. We shifted focus to the fashion show, and the evaluation was in our favor. It was more than an event. It was Lilas's declaration of independence. The theme was From Shadows to Light, with each outfit narrating a journey from captivity to freedom. Designers worked tirelessly in the studio, transforming Serafina's old sketches into modern masterpieces. Flowing fabrics symbolized breaking chains. Bold colors represented rebirth. I helped coordinate the logistics, inviting potential investors and media. Lila said one evening as we reviewed the guest list, "This has to be perfect. It's not just about the money, it's about honoring Mother's vision." The venue was a historic hall in the city's heart, the same one Serafina had used for her debut show decades ago. As the day approached, security was heightened after Damien's latest threat. We hired extra guards and installed backup generators, anticipating sabotage. On the night of the show, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Guests arrived in elegant attire, murmuring about the Voss revival. Backstage, models prepared, their outfits gleaming under the lights. Lila stood at the center, composed but electric with energy. The show began flawlessly. The first model strode down the runway in a gown that started dark and restrictive at the bodice, gradually lightening and flowing freely at the hem. Applause rippled through the audience. Each piece told a story: a jacket with hidden pockets for secrets, a dress with unraveling threads symbolizing escape. Midway through, the lights flickered. Whispers spread as the power surged erratically. Thorne rushed to the control room, discovering tampered wiring. It was Damien, no doubt, his attempt to cause chaos, perhaps even a fire, but our backups kicked in seamlessly, the generators humming to life. The show continued without a hitch, turning potential disaster into a testament to our preparedness. Lila took the stage as the finale approached, wearing the collection's centerpiece, a white ensemble embroidered with phoenix motifs rising from ashes. "Ladies and gentlemen," she addressed the crowd, "Los Couture is not just fashion, it's a story of survival. Tonight, we reclaim our legacy." The applause was thunderous. Investors approached immediately, pledging support. One venture capitalist committed millions, impressed by the narrative and market potential. The event raised enough to stabilize the company, covering debts and funding expansions. But the night held a twist. As guests mingled, Julian Sterling approached our group discreetly. "Lila," he said quietly, "I need to talk." We stepped into a side room. Julian looked conflicted, his usual poise cracked. "I am withdrawing as Damien's counsel. My mother endured similar abuse from my father. I can't represent someone like him anymore." Lila's eyes widened. "Why now?" "I have evidence," he continued. "Internal memos showing Damien's direct involvement in sabotaging Voss Couture, bribes to suppliers, falsified reports. I will provide it to Victoria, but it comes at a cost. The Bar Association will investigate me for breaching confidentiality." Victoria nodded solemnly. "It's an ethical gray area, but you might be protected as a whistleblower if the evidence exposes crimes. Still, expect scrutiny and possible suspension." Julian agreed, handing over a flash drive. "Do what you must. This ends his hold." The revelation shifted everything. With Julian's defection, Damien's case weakened further. But the sabotage attempt prompted an immediate police report. Investigators traced the tampering to a hired thug linked to Damien through payments. He denied involvement, but the noose tightened. Back at the estate that night, Lila collapsed, exhausted but triumphant, into a chair. "The show was a success," she murmured, "and Julian, I didn't expect that." "Neither did I replied, "but it shows cracks in his empire." Dr. Kane's report was emailed as we debriefed, affirming Lila's mental fitness. It detailed the coercive control, recommending ongoing therapy but clearing her for complete control of the inheritance. Damien appealed, of course, but the momentum was ours. The following days brought more depth to our victory. Lila attended a therapy session, sharing her flashbacks in a group setting. Hearing others' stories mirrored her own, fostering healing. I joined her once, confronting my resentment. "Ilara," she said afterward, "your support means everything." The fashion show's success attracted media attention, with articles praising the collection's emotional depth. Sales inquiries poured in, breathing life into Vos Couture. Yet, Damien's sabotage lingered as a reminder of his desperation. In a quiet moment, Lila reflected on the evaluation. It forced me to face the trauma, but it also showed my strength. We pressed on, knowing the battle wasn't over. Damien's current partner, Nadia, reached out soon after, her call hinting at more revelations. But for now, the psychological challenge was met, paving the way for greater confrontations. The triumph of the fashion show lingered like a sweet aftertaste. But victory in our world was fleeting. Damien's sabotage attempt had been thwarted, and with Julian Sterling's defection, the cracks in his facade were widening. Yet, as we celebrated the influx of investments pouring into Vos Couture, a new storm brewed on the horizon. It arrived in the form of a frantic phone call late one evening, shattering the fragile peace we had begun to rebuild. I was in the studio with Lila, reviewing fabric samples under the warm glow of the lamps, when her phone rang. The number was unknown, but something in Lila's expression as she answered told me this was no ordinary call. "Hello?" Her voice was cautious, laced with the wariness that had become second nature. On the other end, a woman's voice broke through, trembling and urgent. "Lila, this is Nadia Vos. No, Blackwood. I need help, please." Lila's face drained of color. "Nadia? Damien's, what happened? Are you okay?" I leaned in, piecing together the fragments. Nadia was Damien's current partner, the woman who had stepped into the void Lila left behind. Rumors had swirled about her pregnancy, but we had no direct contact until now. Nadia's words tumbled out in a rush. "He pushed me. I was defending you, telling him to leave you alone, and he just lost it. I'm in the hospital. The baby..." Lila gripped the phone tighter. "Oh God, is the baby all right? Where are you?" "St. Mary's Hospital. The baby's coming early, but they say it'll be fine. But Damien, he's furious. I can't go back." "We'll be there," Lila promised, already motioning for me to grab the keys. "Hang on, Nadia." We raced to the hospital, the city lights blurring past us. On the way, Lila told me what little she knew about Nadia. She was younger, perhaps in her late 20s, with a background not unlike Lila's own. Nadia had grown up in a modest family, ambitious and bright, but isolated after a series of personal setbacks, a failed business venture, and the loss of close friends to distance and time. That's when Damien entered her life, charming and attentive, filling the voids with promises of security and love. It was the same playbook he had used on Lila: gradual isolation, control masked as protection. By the time we arrived, Nadia was in labor. We waited in the sterile hallway, the beeps of monitors echoing our anxiety. Hours later, a nurse emerged with good news: a healthy baby boy, named Elias. Nadia was exhausted but stable, a bruise blooming on her arm where Damien had grabbed her before the push. We entered the room quietly. Nadia lay propped up in bed, her dark hair matted with sweat, holding her newborn with joy and fear. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "I didn't know who else to call." Leela sat beside her, taking her hand. "Tell us everything." Nadia's story poured out like a dam breaking. It began innocently enough, coffee dates turning into a whirlwind romance. Damien showered her with gifts and whisked her away to exotic locales. But soon, the red flags appeared. He discouraged her from seeing old friends, claiming they were jealous of their happiness. He managed her finances, insisting it was for their future. When she discovered she was pregnant, his control intensified. Any mention of Lila or the ongoing legal battles triggered rage. She confronted him tonight after seeing a news clip about the fashion show. "You can't keep hurting her," Nadia had said. "She's the mother of your child?" No, wait, that wasn't right. Lila and Damien had no children, but the parallel abuses blurred in Nadia's mind. "He screamed that I was betraying him," Nadia continued, tears streaming. "Then, he shoved me down the stairs. I barely caught the railing." The police had been called, but Damien had fled before they arrived. Nadia refused to press charges immediately, terrified of retaliation, but Lila convinced her otherwise. "You have to, for Elias's sake. We'll protect you." With Victoria's help, we arranged for Nadia to stay at a safe house affiliated with a women's shelter. Lila covered the costs from the inheritance, ensuring round-the-clock security. As Nadia recovered, she opened up more about the abuse. It mirrored Lila's experience eerily. The gaslighting, the financial stranglehold, the emotional manipulation. Damien had even used phrases like, "You're nothing without me," to erode her self-worth. Nadia's testimony became a turning point. Victoria filed it as evidence in the ongoing lawsuits, detailing the patterns of abuse. It wasn't just Lila anymore. There was a trail of victims. Nadia agreed to testify, her voice gaining strength with each retelling. In court, she stood tall, describing the isolation that started with subtle suggestions and escalated to outright bans on social interactions. "He made me cut ties with my family," she said. "I was alone except for him." The impact rippled through Damien's family. Elowen Blackwood, his mother, a formidable woman who had long turned a blind eye to her son's flaws, finally acted. Upon hearing Nadia's account and seeing photos of the bruises, she cut off his financial support. She declared no more allowances from the family trust in a private letter leaked to the press. "You've shamed us enough." Sable, Damien's sister, went public with her criticism. In a scathing interview with a major news outlet, she denounced him. "I've seen the signs for years," she admitted, "but family loyalty blinded me. No more." She pledged donations to abuse survivor organizations, further tarnishing the Blackwood name. Damien's empire began to crumble. Business partners distanced themselves, and stocks in his companies dipped. He lashed out in interviews, calling the accusations fabrications by bitter exes. But the tide had turned. Amid this chaos, Lila found a new purpose in helping Nadia. She visited daily, bringing baby supplies and sharing stories about her escape. It was therapeutic for both, watching Elias's tiny fingers curl around hers. Lila spoke of building a support network. "We're not alone anymore." Nadia's backstory added layers to the narrative. She had been a social worker before meeting Damien, ironically helping victims of domestic violence. Her own isolation stemmed from burnout and a relocation that severed ties. Damien preyed on that vulnerability, much like he had with Lila's post-divorce fragility. As the days passed, Nadia's testimony led to an arrest warrant for Damien on assault charges. He went underground briefly, but the pressure mounted. Then, the cliffhanger arrived. A secretive email from Kieran, Damien's younger brother. "I need to meet," it read. "I have information that could end this for good." Lila and I stared at the screen, hearts pounding. Kieran had always been the quiet one, overshadowed by Damien's dominance. What secrets did he hold? We arranged a discreet meeting, unsure if it was an ally or a trap. The web of betrayal was tightening, and with Nadia's courage lighting the way, we braced for the revelations ahead. In the quiet moments, Lila reflected on the parallels. "Helping Nadia is like saving a part of myself," she confided. "And with the family turning, justice is finally within reach." The drama escalated as Sable's public stance drew media frenzy, protesters gathering outside Blackwood offices. Elowen's financial cutoff left Damien scrambling, his luxurious lifestyle unraveling. Nadia, safe with Elias, began rebuilding, enrolling in online courses with Lila's encouragement. Yet, Damien's threats persisted, in anonymous calls warning Nadia to recant. We traced them, bolstering the case. As Kieran's meeting loomed, the air thickened with anticipation. What would the brother reveal? The new victim's emergence had shifted the battle, exposing the depths of Damien's depravity and forging unlikely bonds in the fight for truth. Kieran's email hung over us like a storm cloud, its cryptic promise of information both a beacon of hope and a potential trap. Lila and I arranged to meet him at a secluded cafe on the outskirts of town, far from prying eyes. The weight of Nadia's testimony and the Blackwood family's unraveling added urgency to every step. Damien's empire was crumbling, but a cornered predator is always the most dangerous. The cafe was dimly lit, with worn wooden tables and the faint hum of jazz in the background. Kieran arrived alone, his lanky frame hunched, as if carrying the burdens of his family's sins. His eyes, like Damien's yet softer, darted nervously as he sat across from us. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, voice low. "I know this is risky." Lila leaned forward, her expression guarded. "Why now, Kieran? You've been silent all this time." He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "I've been complicit too long. Growing up, I saw things I tried to ignore. But Nadia's story, your fight, it woke me up." Kieran revealed a flash drive, its surface scratched from being hidden away. "This has everything," he said. "Financial records, emails, and even voice memos from our father, Roderick." He taught Damien how to manipulate and control people like pawns. It started with our mother, Elowen. His backstory unfolded in halting sentences. As a child, Kieran had witnessed Roderick's domineering hold over Elowen, subtle but relentless. She was never struck, but her spirit was caged, her decisions overridden. Damien idolized it, mimicking the tactics. By 16, he was helping Roderick bribe officials to secure land deals, learning to exploit weaknesses. Younger and quieter, Kieran was dismissed as weak and left to observe the destruction. "I hated it," he admitted, "but I stayed loyal until now." Lila took the flash drive, her fingers trembling slightly. "This could end him," she said. "But why betray your brother?" Kieran met her gaze. "Because he's not my brother anymore. He's a monster, and I'm done protecting him." The drive contained damning evidence. Spreadsheets detailing bribes to city planners, recordings of Roderick instructing Damien on coercive tactics, and emails where Damien boasted about ruining Vos Couture to keep Lila dependent. One memo even outlined his plan to sabotage the historic neighborhood for profit. It was a goldmine for Victoria's legal arsenal, but the meeting wasn't without danger. As we left the cafe, Lila's phone buzzed with a chilling voicemail from Damien. "I know you're digging, Lila. Stop, or I'll destroy everything you love." His voice was calm, almost amused, sending shivers down my spine. We tightened security around the estate, but the threat lingered. Lila threw herself into action, channeling her fear into purpose. She joined a therapy group for abuse survivors, a step I'd never expected. Sitting in a circle of women with stories mirroring her own, she shared fragments of her marriage. "I blamed myself for so long," she confessed in one session, "but seeing Nadia's strength, I realize I can forgive myself too." The therapy gave her clarity, but the legal battle intensified. The hearing for the historic neighborhood's fate was pushed forward, orchestrated by Roderick, despite his recent stroke. His influence lingered, pulling strings through loyal associates. Victoria prepared relentlessly, integrating Kieran's evidence with Nadia's testimony and Isolde's dossier. The case was now a sprawling web, exposing decades of Blackwood corruption. At the estate, I noticed a shift in Lila. She was no longer just surviving. She was strategizing. "Alara," she said one evening, sorting through fabric swatches, "this isn't just about me anymore. It's about stopping a cycle." I nodded, grappling with my own guilt. Years ago, Damien had used me to undermine Vos Couture, and the shame still stung. Helping Lila now was my redemption. We worked late, planning a community outreach event to rally support for the neighborhood, inviting survivors like Nadia to speak. Meanwhile, Kieran's defection sent shockwaves through the Blackwood family. Sable, already vocal, doubled down, leaking more documents to the press. Elowen, once complicit, began cooperating with investigators, perhaps to salvage her reputation. The media frenzy grew, with headlines branding Damien a pariah. His companies faced audits, and investors pulled out, citing ethical concerns. But Damien struck back. A late-night call to Nadia warned her to retract her testimony, or Elias would pay. She refused, bolstered by Lila's support and safe house protection. The police traced the call, but Damien used burner phones, staying one step ahead. Kieran's evidence bolstered our case, but came at a personal cost. He confided his internal struggle: loyalty to family versus justice. "I grew up idolizing Damien," he admitted. "But whenever I saw him hurt someone, it chipped away at me." Nadia's story was the last straw. Victoria filed the new evidence, pushing for an expedited hearing. The neighborhood case was now tied to broader charges against Damien: fraud, bribery, and assault. His electronic monitoring, imposed after Nadia's incident, restricted his movements, but he remained a ghost, slipping through cracks. Lila's therapy group became a sanctuary. In one session, a woman shared a story of reclaiming her life after years of control. Lila listened, tears in her eyes, then spoke. "I'm building something new, not just for me, but for others like us." It was a vow, one I saw her live out daily. As the hearing approached, we uncovered another layer of betrayal. Kieran's files revealed Roderick's past abuse of Elowyn, a secret buried by family wealth. It explained her initial silence, her complicity. Kieran had found her old journal, hidden in their mansion, detailing the manipulation. It was a bombshell, painting Damien as a product of a toxic legacy. The night before the hearing, Lila sat in the studio, sketching a new dress inspired by the group's stories. "It's about resilience," she said. "Each stitch is a step forward." But Damien's shadow loomed. Another voicemail arrived, this time for me. "Ilara, you traitor. You'll regret siding with her." The call ended abruptly, but the threat was clear. We alerted the police, who increased patrols around the estate. Kieran's meeting had changed everything, exposing the rot at the Blackwood's core. Yet, as we prepared for the hearing, a sense of unease settled in. Damien was desperate, and desperation bred chaos. Lila and I shared a look, an unspoken understanding passing between us. The fight for the neighborhood was more than a legal battle. It was a stand against a legacy of control. As we finalized our strategy, Nadia's voice echoed in my mind, her courage a reminder of what was at stake. Kieran's betrayal had tipped the scales, but the cost was yet to be seen. The hearing loomed, a crucible where truth would face power, and we braced for the storm Damien would unleash. The courtroom buzzed with tension, an electric hum vibrating through the polished wood and stern faces. The hearing for the historic neighborhood's fate was no longer just about land. It had become a reckoning for the Blackwood legacy. Lila stood at the center, flanked by Victoria and me, her eyes resolute despite the sleepless nights. Kieran's evidence, Nadia's testimony, and Isolde's dossier had armed us with a formidable case, but Damien's unpredictability loomed large. Judge Harlan presided, her gaze sharp as she reviewed the documents. The prosecution, bolstered by our submissions, opened with a blistering summary. Victoria took the lead, her voice steady. "Your Honor, we present irrefutable evidence of Damien Blackwood's corruption, bribes to city officials, fraudulent land deals, and deliberate sabotage of Voss Couture to control Lila Voss. This project threatens a historic neighborhood, a community built on legacies like Serafina Voss's." She laid out Kieran's files, detailing decades of Blackwood manipulation. Audio recordings of Roderick coaching Damien on coercive tactics played to a hushed room, his voice cold and calculated. Spreadsheets showed payments to officials, disguised as consulting fees to fast-track the neighborhood's demolition. Nadia's testimony followed, her account of abuse echoing Lila's, painting a pattern of control. Damien's legal team, now led by a replacement attorney after Julian's withdrawal, scrambled to counter. They argued the evidence was circumstantial, accusing Lila of fabricating claims for financial gain. But their defense faltered when Julian took the stand, a surprise witness for our side. His decision to testify against Damien had sparked an ethics probe, but he spoke with conviction. "I saw the memos," he said. "Damien bragged about ruining Voss Couture to keep Lila dependent. I couldn't stay silent." The courtroom stirred. Damien's face, usually composed, twitched with fury. He leaned toward his lawyer, whispering frantically. But the tide was turning. Lila testified next, her voice steady despite the weight of memory. "Damien isolated me, controlled every aspect of my life. He sabotaged my mother's company to trap me. This neighborhood project is another way to erase legacies threatening his power." Her words carried a quiet strength resonating with the gallery. I watched Elowyn Blackwood, seated in the back, flinch at the mention of control. Her decision to cut Damien off financially had weakened him, but her presence here suggested more profound guilt. The prosecution closed with a plea to halt the project, citing public interest and criminal activity. Judge Harlan adjourned for deliberation, promising a swift ruling. But as we left the courtroom, a new crisis erupted. Thorne called, his voice urgent. Lila, the estate's security system was breached. Someone broke into the studio. We raced back to find chaos. The studio, once a haven of creativity, was trashed. Fabrics were shredded, sketches torn, and Serafina's vintage sewing machine lay in pieces. A note pinned to the wall read, "You'll never win." Thanks to Thorne's foresight, security footage caught Damien slipping in, and his ankle monitor was disabled. He had exploited a blind spot in the system, a calculated act of vengeance. Victoria contacted the police immediately. The breach violated Damien's monitoring conditions, triggering an arrest warrant. Officers tracked him to a nearby motel, where he was apprehended without resistance. The footage was added to the case, further damning his credibility. In the aftermath, Lila stood amid the wreckage, her face a mask of grief and resolve. "He wanted to break me again," she said, "but he won't." We cleaned up together, salvaging what we could. Nadia arrived, Elias in her arms, offering quiet support. She said that Lila's strength inspired her, and they shared a moment of solidarity. The next day, Judge Harlan delivered her ruling. "The neighborhood project is permanently halted," she declared. "Evidence of corruption and coercion is overwhelming. Mr. Blackwood's actions constitute a clear intent to harm." The gallery erupted in cheers, and I saw tears in Lila's eyes, not sorrow, but relief. But the drama wasn't over. Hours after the ruling, Damien, now in custody, requested a meeting with Lila. Against Victoria's advice, she agreed, driven by a need for closure. They met in a stark interrogation room, separated by glass. Damien's face was gaunt, his charm replaced by desperation. "Why did you do it?" Lila asked. "Why me? You took everything," he spat. "My legacy, my control. You were supposed to stay mine." Lila shook her head. "You destroyed yourself, Damien, not me." He smirked, but it was hollow. "You'll see, this isn't over." His words were a weak threat, but lingered, a reminder of his volatility. The police revealed more. Damien had attempted to flee, disabling his monitor with a stolen device. His capture was sheer luck. A patrol spotted him before he could vanish. In custody, he confessed to the studio vandalism, but claimed it was to scare Lila, not harm her. The judge added charges, tightening the legal noose. Kieran's role became public, drawing both praise and scorn. Sable reached out to him, their sibling bond strained but not broken. She visited Lila, offering an apology. "I should have acted sooner," she said. "We're trying to rebuild, starting with honesty." Lila's therapy group became a lifeline. She shared the courtroom victory, inspiring others. One woman, a new member, spoke of her own controlling partner, and Lila offered her contact at the safe house. It was a small act, but it grounded her purpose. Back at the estate, we began rebuilding the studio. Investors, moved by the trial's publicity, doubled their commitments to Vos Couture. The company was no longer just surviving, it was thriving. Lila sketched a new collection, each piece infused with the trial's emotions: triumph, pain, and hope. Damien's confession had cracked his facade, but the final trial for his crimes loomed. Victoria prepared for a battle, armed with every piece of evidence. Despite the ethics probe, Julian was cleared temporarily. Despite the ethics probe, and his whistleblower status shielded him. He and Lila grew closer, their conversations shifting from legal strategy to shared dreams, though romance remained a distant spark. As we planned the following steps, a twist emerged. Police found a hidden journal written by Elowen years ago in Damien's apartment. It detailed Roderick's abuse, confirming Kieran's story, and exposing a family secret. Roderick had coerced Elowen into silence with threats to her children. It explained her complicity and her eventual rebellion. The journal was a final blow, linking Damien's actions to a toxic legacy. Lila read it late one night, her voice soft. "It's not just about stopping him. It's about breaking this cycle for good." The courtroom climax had secured the neighborhood, but Damien's escape attempt and the journal's revelations set the stage for the final reckoning. As we braced for his trial, Lila's resolve grew. She was no longer just a survivor, but a force, rewriting her story and ours. The air was thick with the aftermath of the courtroom victory, but Damien's shadow refused to fade. His arrest for vandalizing the studio had tightened the legal noose, yet his brief escape attempt revealed a man unhinged, desperate to reclaim control. Lila stood stronger than ever, but the cost of confronting him weighed heavily. As we prepared for his final trial, the pursuit of justice took a darker turn, unraveling the last threads of the Blackwood legacy. Damien's capture at the motel was a fleeting relief. Police found him disheveled, clutching a stolen handgun, his ankle monitor discarded like a shackle he believed he could outrun. He left a rambling letter in custody, its words a chaotic blend of defiance and despair. "Lila, you forced my hand," it began. "You took my empire, my family, my future. I had to end it." The letter hinted at a suicide attempt, though police confirmed he hesitated, unable to pull the trigger after holding me hostage briefly during his rampage. The hostage incident had shaken us all. Damien had cornered me at the estate, his eyes wild as he waved the gun. "You're her shadow, Ilera," he spat. "Always lurking, betraying me." I pleaded, heart-pounding, until he faltered, releasing me before fleeing. Thorne's quick call to the police ensured his capture, but the encounter left me rattled, my resentment toward Lila mingling with guilt for my past complicity. Lila insisted on facing Damien one last time before the trial. Against Victoria's protests, she visited him in the detention center, the glass between them a barrier both physical and emotional. "Why?" she asked, her voice steady but searching. "Why drag everyone down with you?" Damien leaned forward, his smirk gone, replaced by a hollow stare. "You stole everything, Lila. My power, my name. You were supposed to break, not me." His words confessed his warped logic, blaming her for his unraveling. Lila walked away, unshaken but burdened, knowing his obsession had consumed him. The police investigation deepened, uncovering more from Kieran's evidence. Nadia's testimony had already exposed Damien's abuse, but Kieran's files revealed a family secret that rocked us. Roderick, before his stroke, had abused Elowen, manipulating her into compliance with threats against her children. A hidden recording, buried in Kieran's drive, captured Roderick admitting to grooming Damien for the same tactics. He said, "I taught you to control, not to feel," his voice cold. The revelation painted Damien as both perpetrator and product of a toxic lineage, complicating the narrative. Now safe with Elias, Nadia added her voice to the trial preparations. Her testimony grew stronger, detailing how Damien isolated her from her social work colleagues, mirroring Lila's experience. She provided text messages where he mocked her dreams, calling them childish. "I thought I was alone," she told Lila during a visit to the safe house, "but seeing you fight gave me courage." Kieran's role became central. He met with us again, his face drawn from the weight of betrayal. "I found Mother's journal after Father's stroke," he said. "It was hidden in his study. She wrote about the fear, the control. I couldn't stay silent anymore." His evidence, combined with Elowen's recent cooperation, painted a damning picture. Elowen, once complicit, now spoke to investigators, confirming Roderick's abuse and Damien's role in continuing it. The pursuit of Damien took a toll. Lila's therapy sessions intensified, her nightmares resurfacing as the trial neared. In one group session, she shared the confrontation with Damien. "He blamed me," she said, "but I saw the truth. He's broken by his own choices." The group, including a new member escaping a similar partner, rallied around her, their stories weaving a tapestry of resilience. Victoria prepared meticulously, integrating every piece of evidence. Isolde's dossier, Kieran's files, Nadia's testimony, and the studio vandalism footage. The charges now included assault, fraud, bribery, and violation of monitoring conditions. Damien's attempt to flee had added obstruction of justice, sealing his fate. But Damien's self-destruction escalated. In custody, he fired his new attorney, opting to represent himself. It was a reckless move, born of arrogance or desperation. Victoria warned us he might use the trial to manipulate the narrative, painting himself as a victim. We braced for his theatrics, knowing the evidence was ironclad. Lila and I sat in the rebuilt studio the night before the trial, surrounded by new sketches. The phoenix motif from the fashion show adorned a dress, symbolizing rebirth. "Helping Nadia and facing Damien is changing me," Lila said. "I'm not just fighting for myself anymore." I nodded, my own guilt softening. "I was wrong to blame you," I admitted. "I let Damien use me too. We're in this together now." The trial's opening day loomed, but a final twist emerged. Police found a second letter from Damien hidden in his cell, addressed to Kieran. "You betrayed the family," it read, "but I'll take you all down with me." It hinted at more secrets, perhaps leverage he planned to use in court. Victoria secured the letter, adding it to the evidence, but it left us uneasy. Nadia's courage grew, and her presence at the safe house became a beacon for others. She began mentoring new arrivals, sharing her story. Lila funded expansions, ensuring more rooms and resources. Now smiling and healthy, Elias became a symbol of hope, his laughter filling the safe house. Sable, meanwhile, distanced herself further from the Blackwood name. She launched a foundation for abuse survivors, dedicating it to Lila and Nadia. Elowen, grappling with her past, began therapy, her first step toward accountability. The family's fracture was complete, and Damien's actions were the catalyst. As the trial approached, Lila visited the neighborhood we'd saved. Children played in the streets, and shopkeepers thanked her for preserving their legacy. "It's what Mother would have wanted," she said, sketching a new design inspired by the community's vibrancy. Damien's self-destruction was evident in his erratic behavior. Jail reports noted his sleepless nights and his rants about betrayal. The gun, the letters, the vandalism all pointed to a man unraveling, his empire reduced to ashes by his own hand. Kieran, despite his courage, faced threats from Damien's remaining allies. He moved to a secure location, vowing to testify. His evidence was the final nail, exposing Damien and the Blackwood dynasty's rot. Roderick's legacy, once untouchable, was now a cautionary tale. Lila's therapy group celebrated small victories. The new member, inspired by Lila, filed charges against her abuser. "It's a ripple effect," Lila said, her voice steady. "We're breaking the cycle." As we finalized our strategy, the trial loomed like a storm. Damien's letters and confessions had stripped him bare, but his promise to take us down lingered. The pursuit had caught him, but his final act was yet to unfold. Lila, Nadia, Kieran, and I stood united, ready to face the chaos, knowing justice was within reach. The trial of Damien Blackwood was a crucible, a moment where years of pain and betrayal converged into a single point of reckoning. The courtroom was packed, the air heavy with anticipation as reporters, survivors, and curious onlookers filled the seats. Lila stood at the heart of it, her presence a quiet force, no longer the broken woman Damien had tried to make her. Nadia, Kieran, and I flanked her, our collective resolve a shield against his lingering malice. The evidence was overwhelming, but Damien's decision to represent himself promised chaos. Judge Harlan presided with her usual gravitas, eyes scanning the room as the prosecution opened. Victoria laid out the case methodically. Fraud, bribery, assault, and obstruction of justice, supported by Kieran's files, Nadia's testimony, Isolda's dossier, and the studio vandalism footage. Each piece was a brick in a wall closing around Damien. His letters, especially the one threatening to take us down, were read aloud, their venom chilling the room. Damien rose, his tailored suit a stark contrast to his haggard face. He began his defense with a theatrical flourish, claiming persecution. "I am a victim of a vendetta," he declared. "Lila Voss, driven by greed, fabricated this narrative to steal my legacy." He gestured wildly, accusing Kieran of betrayal and Nadia of lies, his voice rising to a fever pitch. But the jury remained impassive, their faces hardened by the evidence. Victoria called witnesses with precision. Nadia took the stand, her voice steady as she recounted the assault that endangered her unborn son. "He pushed me down the stairs for defending Lila," she said, her gaze unwavering. The bruise on her arm, documented by hospital photos, was displayed, drawing gasps. Kieran followed, his testimony a quiet devastation. My father taught Damien to control and manipulate. I saw it as a child, and I saw it destroy Lila and Nadia. Lila's testimony was the cornerstone. She spoke of the years of isolation, the financial control, the gaslighting that made her doubt her worth. He sabotaged Vos Couture to keep me dependent, she said. But I survived, and am here to ensure he can't hurt anyone. Her words, calm yet piercing, resonated deeply. I watched Elowen in the gallery, her face crumpling as Lila spoke, perhaps seeing her past reflected. Damien's cross-examination was a disaster. He questioned Lila aggressively, attempting to paint her as unstable. You were homeless, broken, he sneered. How can anyone trust your word? But Lila remained composed. You made me homeless, Damien. Your actions prove my truth. The jury's expressions shifted, their skepticism of Damien growing. Julian testified next. His ethics probe was ongoing, but his resolve was firm. I represented him until I saw the truth, he said. His memos bragged about ruining Vos Couture. I couldn't stay silent. The Bar Association had cleared him temporarily, citing his whistleblower status, but his career hung in the balance. His testimony added weight, confirming the financial sabotage with documents from Kieran's drive. The prosecution played the studio vandalism footage, showing Damien's calculated destruction. His disabled ankle monitor, recovered at the motel, was presented, proving his intent to flee. The rambling letters, filled with blame and threats, sealed his fate. Damien's rebuttal was incoherent, a mix of self-pity and accusations. I built an empire, he shouted. They tore it down. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours. When they returned, the foreperson's voice was clear. Guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted, cheers mingling with sobs. Judge Harlan sentenced Damien to 28 years, citing the severity of his crimes and the pattern of abuse. As he was led away in handcuffs, he turned to Lila, his eyes burning. You'll never be free of me, he mouthed. But Lila met his gaze, unflinching, and turned away. Outside, the media swarmed. Lila gave a brief statement, her voice steady. This isn't just my victory, it's for Nadia, for every survivor who's fought back. Nadia, holding Elias, stood beside her, a symbol of resilience. Kieran, quieter, nodded in agreement, his role in exposing the truth acknowledged by all. Back at the estate, Lila sat in the rebuilt studio, the phoenix dress on display. I expected to feel joy, she said, but it's empty, not defeat, just quiet. I understood. Justice had been served, but the scars remained. Her therapy group had taught her to embrace this emptiness as space for healing, not loss. Julian's ethics probe concluded days later. The Bar Association cleared him, citing the public good of exposing Damien's crimes. He visited Lila, their conversations deepening. They discussed legal strategies for Vos Couture's expansion, but I noticed a warmth in their exchanges, a spark of something more, though neither rushed it. Nadia thrived at the safe house, mentoring new arrivals. She enrolled in social work courses, determined to reclaim her career. Elias's laughter filled the space, a reminder of what we'd fought for. Sable's foundation grew, funding shelters and legal aid, while Elowen began public apologies, her therapy uncovering layers of guilt for enabling Roderick and Damien. I confronted my own past in therapy, admitting my resentment toward Lila for the opportunities I lost. She listened, then hugged me. We both made mistakes, Alara, she said. But we're family. Let's build forward. It was a turning point, and our bond was stronger for it. The neighborhood we saved buzzed with life. Lila visited often, sketching designs inspired by its vibrancy. Vos Couture's revival gained momentum, flooding orders after the trial's publicity. Investors praised Lila's vision, and the company expanded, hiring survivors from her therapy group. Damien's final act in court was self-destruction, and his arrogance exposed his guilt. The letters, the vandalism, and the escape attempt painted a man undone by his need for control. Yet, his parting words lingered, a faint echo of threat. We increased security, knowing his influence might linger through loyalists. Lila's therapy sessions continued, her nightmares easing. She shared a breakthrough. "I'm not just surviving anymore, I'm living." The group celebrated, their stories interwoven with hers. A new member, inspired by Lila's speech, joined. Her story was eerily similar. Lila offered her resources, a cycle of support taking root. As we planned the next phase, Lila sketched in the studio, the light catching the phoenix embroidery. "Justice wasn't the end," she said. "It's the beginning." We toasted to that, Nadia and Kieran joining us, their presence a testament to our shared fight. The trial had closed a chapter, but Damien's legacy of pain lingered in the shadows. Lila's strength, Nadia's courage, and Kieran's redemption had forged a new path. As we looked to the future, the emptiness of victory gave way to purpose, a promise to rebuild not just a company, but lives. The dust of Damien's trial settled, leaving a quiet that felt both heavy and hopeful. Lila had won, not just in court, but in reclaiming her life. The scars remained, but they were no longer wounds, they were marks of survival, etched into a future she was building with purpose. Vos Couture thrived, its revival a beacon of resilience, but Lila's vision stretched beyond fashion. She wanted to honor her mother, Serafina's legacy, by creating something lasting that could break the cycle of pain for others. The idea for the Serafina Center took root in the weeks following the trial. Lila envisioned a community hub for survivors of abuse, offering shelter, therapy, and job training. She poured her inheritance into it, transforming a vacant warehouse in the historic neighborhood we had saved into a sanctuary. The center would provide apartments for those escaping abusive homes, counseling rooms for healing, and workshops to rebuild careers. It was ambitious, but Lila's resolve was unshakable. I watched her sketch the center's logo one evening in the rebuilt studio, the phoenix motif from her collection woven into the design. "This is for Mother," she said, her voice soft but firm, "and for every woman who feels trapped like I did." The groundbreaking ceremony drew a crowd, Nadia with Elias, Kieran, Sable, and even Elowen, whose tentative steps toward redemption had begun. Local leaders praised Lila's initiative, and survivors from her therapy group attended, their presence a testament to the ripple effect of her fight. The media covered the event, highlighting Vos Couture's role in funding the project, which boosted the company's profile. Now a mentor at the Safe House, Nadia took on a leadership role at the center. Her social work background made her a natural fit, and she thrived, guiding new arrivals with empathy born of experience. One afternoon, Lila met a woman named Clara at the center, a new resident whose story mirrored her own. Clara's husband had controlled her finances, isolated her from friends, and left her homeless after she fled. Lila listened, her eyes reflecting recognition, and offered Clara a job in Vos Couture's administrative team. "It's a start," Lila told her. "You're not alone anymore." The interaction was full circle, echoing Lila's journey from despair to empowerment. Clara's gratitude, her tentative smile, reminded me of Lila months ago when hope was a fragile spark. Now, that spark had ignited a movement. The center opened its doors within months, its first residents settling into safe apartments, their children playing in a courtyard designed to feel like home. Julian became a key ally in this new chapter. Cleared of ethical violations, he worked pro bono to secure permits and funding for the center. His conversations with Lila deepened, moving from legal discussions to shared dreams. They laughed over coffee, planning community outreach, and I noticed a quiet chemistry growing. It wasn't rushed, but a slow unfolding of trust built on mutual respect. They collaborated on a legal aid program at the center, ensuring survivors could access attorneys like Victoria. Kieran's transformation was equally profound. His testimony had dismantled the Blackwood legacy, but he sought to rebuild something better. A letter arrived one morning, addressed to Lila in his neat handwriting. "I'm starting over," it read. "The Blackwood name will mean justice now, not control. I'm working with Sable to fund shelters and reform our family's companies. Thank you for showing me what courage looks like." The twist was unexpected, a promise to heal a fractured lineage. And Lila kept the letter on her desk, a reminder of redemption's reach. Sable's foundation grew, partnering with the Serafina Center to provide grants for survivors. Elowen, attending therapy, made her first public donation, a quiet act of atonement. The Blackwood family's unraveling had left space for renewal, and Kieran's commitment was its cornerstone. Lila's therapy group remained her anchor. She shared the center's opening with them, her voice steady as she described helping Clara. "It's like saving a part of myself," she said. The group, now including Clara, celebrated her, their stories intertwining. Lila's nightmares had faded, replaced by dreams of designs and community. Her final session focused on forgiveness, not of Damien, but of herself for the guilt she carried. "She told me I'm free later, not just from him, but from my doubts." Vase Couture flourished, its new collection inspired by the center's residents. Each piece told a story of rebirth, with fabrics donated by local artisans from the neighborhood. Sales soared, and Lila hired more survivors, their skills honed in the center's workshops. The company became a symbol of resilience, and its runway shows have drawn global attention. I found my own peace, letting go of the resentment that had once defined me. Working alongside Lila, I saw my role in Vase Couture not as a lost opportunity, but as a shared mission. We laughed late into the night, planning expansions, our bond stronger than ever. "You were always my sister," Lila said, "not just my cousin. I'm sorry it took so long to see it." The neighborhood thrived, its shops bustling, its streets alive with festivals. Lila visited often, sketching in a park where children played, their joy contrasting with the battles fought to save it. The center became a hub, hosting art classes, job fairs, and support groups. Nadia led a workshop on financial independence, and her confidence was far from that of the woman who had called Lila in desperation. Clara's progress was a highlight. She excelled in her role, her designs catching Lila's eye. One evening, she presented a sketch of a dress with interwoven threads symbolizing community. Lila included it in the following collection, crediting Clara publicly. It was a moment of pride, a cycle of empowerment complete. As winter approached, Lila stood in the studio, sketching a final piece for the year's collection. The fabric shimmered, reflecting the light of a new dawn. "This is peace," she said, her voice steady. "Not just surviving, but living with meaning." The center's first anniversary brought a surprise. Kieran and Sable attended, announcing a joint initiative to fund similar centers nationwide. Elowen, present but quiet, planted a tree in the courtyard, a gesture of growth. Lila watched, her sketchbook open, capturing the moment. The legacy of shadows had transformed. Damien's imprisonment was a distant echo, his threats powerless against the community Lila built.